What you're about to hear will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about professional wrestling. And I'm going to tell you right now, Tony Khan does not want this video to go viral. The AEW locker room is in absolute chaos as we speak. And if you think you know what happened with John Moxley in the Continental Championship, I'm here to tell you that the story you've been fed is nothing but carefully crafted corporate propaganda. I'm about to expose the real reason John Moxley just walked away from the AEW Continental Championship, and trust me, this goes deeper than anyone in the mainstream wrestling media is willing to admit. So if you're watching this, you need to hit that subscribe button right now because this channel is the only place you're going to get the unfiltered truth. And when I drop this bombshell in about 3 minutes, you're going to understand why this might be the beginning of the end for All Elite Wrestling as we know it. Hello viewers, if you're new here, please don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button for daily updates on WWE Raw. Are you ready? Because there's no going back after this. Let me set the scene for you. Wednesday night, AEW Dynamite. The wrestling world was expecting another incredible title defense from the purveyor of violence himself, John Moxley. Instead, we got an announcement that sent shockwaves through the entire industry. John Moxley, the man who has carried AEW on his back since day one, has relinquished the Continental Championship. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. I need you to drop a comment right now telling me, did Tony Khan force Moxley out, or is there something even more sinister going on here? Because the official statement from AEW, it's laughable. It's insulting to your intelligence as a fan, and I'm going to prove it to you, point by point, with receipts. The official word from AEW is that Moxley is dealing with an undisclosed injury, and that he's relinquishing the title to focus on his health and recovery. On the surface, that sounds noble, right? That sounds like a tough decision made by a warrior who's put his body through hell for our entertainment. And sure, we all know Moxley's style is brutal. The man bleeds for this business. He's had countless death matches, hardcore wars, and battles that would end most men's careers. But here's where the story starts to fall apart, and I need you to pay very close attention. Let's talk about the timeline because this is where everything gets suspicious. Just 2 weeks ago, John Moxley was wrestling a 30-minute clinic against Powerhouse Hobbs. He looked fine. He moved fine. He took bumps, he delivered his signature moves with the same intensity we've come to expect from the Death Rider. There were no reports of injury, no visible signs of distress, nothing. Then, 7 days ago, Moxley cut one of the most intense promos of his entire AEW career, talking about how the Continental Championship represents the fighting spirit of professional wrestling. He talked about defending it against all comers. He talked about making this title mean something in an industry full of plastic champions and corporate yes-men. And now, suddenly, out of nowhere, he's injured? He's walking away? The timeline makes zero sense, and if you're buying what AEW is selling, then I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. But here's where it gets even more interesting, and this is information that I've received from multiple sources close to the AEW locker room. According to what I'm hearing, and these are credible sources who have been right about AEW news in the past, John Moxley had a heated confrontation with Tony Khan and AEW management just 3 days before this announcement. What was that confrontation about? I'm glad you asked. This is the part where everything clicks into place. This is the moment where you're going to realize that what's happening with John Moxley isn't about an injury at all. It's about broken promises, creative frustration, and a company that has completely lost its way. When John Moxley came to AEW in 2019, he didn't just sign a contract. He was given assurances. He was promised that AEW would be different from WWE, that the wrestlers would have creative input, that the focus would be on quality wrestling and meaningful storylines instead of corporate entertainment and sports entertainment with a capital S and E. For the first couple of years, AEW delivered on those promises. We saw the best John Moxley of his entire career. We saw feuds that mattered. We saw championship reigns that felt important. We saw a wrestler who was finally free to be himself, to push boundaries and to create the kind of violent, intense, real wrestling that fans had been craving. But something changed in 2024 and into 2025. And if you've been paying attention, really paying attention, you've noticed it too. AEW started signing every single ex-WWE wrestler they could get their hands on. Now, I'm not saying that's inherently bad. Some of those signings have been fantastic. But here's the problem. With each new signing, with each new big name that Tony Khan brought in, the original AEW roster got pushed further and further down the card. The promises of creative freedom started to ring hollow, and the focus shifted from building long-term storylines to popping ratings with surprise debuts and shock value. John Moxley saw this happening. He lived it. And according to my sources, he's been vocal about his frustrations for months now. Let's talk specifically about the Continental Championship, because this is where Moxley's frustration reached a boiling point. When this title was introduced, it was supposed to be a prestigious championship that represents the best in-ring competition AEW had to offer. It was supposed to be defended regularly. It was supposed to mean something. John Moxley took that responsibility seriously. He wanted to make this title matter. He pitched ideas for a round-robin tournament. He suggested challenging independents and international wrestlers to showcase global talent. He wanted to defend this title on every single AEW show, making it the workhorse championship that elevated everyone who competed for it. But here's what happened instead. AEW management kept pushing back on his ideas. They told him the schedule didn't allow for weekly defenses. They said the tournament idea was too complicated for casual fans to follow. They wanted him to just hold the title, show up occasionally, and let the focus be on whatever ex-WWE star they were featuring that week. And John Moxley, being who he is, fought back. He pushed for his vision. He argued that this was exactly the kind of thing that would differentiate AEW from WWE, that this was the company's identity and they were throwing it away for short-term gains. The final straw came 2 weeks ago. Moxley was told that his next Continental Championship defense would be at an upcoming pay-per-view against a wrestler who just signed with AEW. A wrestler with name value, sure, but someone who hadn't earned a title shot. Someone who hadn't been built up through the rankings that AEW spent years establishing as their unique selling point. Just another example of the ranking system being thrown out the window when it's convenient. Moxley refused. He told management that if they weren't going to respect the championship, if they weren't going to respect the process, if they weren't going to respect what AEW was supposed to stand for, then he didn't want to be part of devaluing it anymore. Now here's where this story goes from concerning to absolutely explosive. John Moxley isn't alone in his frustration, not even close. There is a growing faction within the AEW locker room, veterans and original AEW stars who feel completely betrayed by the direction the company has taken. Think about it. Where's Hangman Adam Page in all of this? Where's Kenny Omega when he's healthy? What happened to the elite storylines that once drove this company? Why are young, homegrown AEW talents getting squashed or relegated to Dark and Rampage while every new WWE signing gets pushed to the moon? My sources tell me that John Moxley's decision to relinquish the Continental Championship wasn't made in isolation. It was discussed, it was deliberate, and it's meant to send a message to Tony Khan and AEW management that cannot be ignored. This is John Moxley saying, I'm not going to be your puppet. I'm not going to be the guy who pretends everything is fine while you dismantle everything this company was built on. I'm not going to hold your championship hostage while you refuse to let me make it mean something. And you know what? I respect the hell out of that. Because in an industry full of people who will smile and cash their checks while their company burns around them, John Moxley is standing up and saying enough. So how did Tony Khan and AEW respond to this situation? Did they acknowledge the creative differences? Did they have an honest conversation about what's really going on here? Of course not. They went with the injury excuse, the convenient, unprovable, undisclosed injury that allows them to save face and avoid the real conversation. And here's the most insulting part. They're going to crown a new Continental Championship in a tournament or match, they're going to act like everything is fine, and they're going to hope that fans are too distracted by the next shiny new signing to ask questions about what really happened. But we're not going to let them get away with it. You're not going to let them get away with it, because you're here watching this video, seeking the truth, demanding accountability from a company that promised to be different and is becoming more like the thing it claimed to oppose with each passing week. Tony Khan is a billionaire son playing with his wrestling toys, and he's forgotten that these aren't just action figures. These are real people, real careers, and real fans who invested their time, money, and emotional energy into believing that AEW would be the alternative we deserved. Let me be crystal clear about something. John Moxley relinquishing the Continental Championship is a 5-alarm fire for AEW. This isn't just about one title. This isn't just about one wrestler being unhappy. This is about the fundamental identity crisis that all elite wrestling is currently experiencing. If AEW loses John Moxley, either literally through him leaving the company or figuratively through him becoming just another disengaged wrestler collecting a check, they lose one of the last connections to what made them special in the first place. Moxley was there at Double or Nothing 2019. He was there when AEW was just a dream. He believed in this company when it was nothing but potential and promises. He left the biggest wrestling company in the world to be part of building something different, something better. And now, 6 years later, he's watching that dream die. He's watching AEW become WWE Light. He's watching the creative freedom disappear. He's watching the ranking system become meaningless. He's watching homegrown talent get buried. And he's saying he won't be complicit in it anymore. The question now is, will this be a wake-up call for Tony Khan, or will it be the beginning of an exodus that destroys AEW from within? But wait, there's more to this story that I haven't even told you yet. Because what if I told you that John Moxley's frustration with the Continental Championship is just the surface level of what's really going on? My sources are telling me that Moxley has been in discussions, private preliminary discussions about what wrestling looks like after AEW.
Now, I'm not saying he's leaving tomorrow. I'm not saying he's signed with another company. But what I am saying is that John Moxley is a man who's planning for every eventuality, and he's not putting all his eggs in the AEW basket anymore. There are whispers about independent promotions. There are whispers about international partnerships. There are even whispers, and I cannot stress enough that this is unconfirmed, about potential interest from other wrestling organizations that would love to have a wrestler of John Moxley's caliber and credibility. Think about what a statement it would be if John Moxley, the man who walked out of WWE at the height of his career, the man who helped build All Elite Wrestling, walked away from AEW because they betrayed the very principles they were founded on. That would be a nuclear bomb dropped on the entire wrestling industry. And let's talk about you for a minute, because you're the one who really matters in all of this. You're the fan who bought the tickets. You're the fan who subscribed to the streaming service. You're the fan who bought the merchandise and defended AEW online against critics who said it would never work. How do you feel right now knowing that the company you believed in is potentially falling apart from the inside? How do you feel knowing that wrestlers like John Moxley, who gave everything to make this company succeed, are being pushed to